Very nice.
Thank you.
I'm staying here in the town of Tenah Rata at 4,700 feet elevation. I arrived here in the afternoon 2 days ago after coming from Georgetown, Penang, where it was 92 degrees Fahrenheit. Just as I was checking into my guest house here, it was 69 degrees, and with the sweetest breeze you can imagine. Tenah Rata is the largest of several vacation towns to be found in these beautiful highlands, which, to no surprise, is a region dominated by tourists seeking relief from the heat. And so far, my only regret is not booking enough time here. I'm meeting up with a group to visit a couple of places outside town this morning. One is a tea plantation. The other is a nature preserve typical of the tropical montane forests that once thrived here but are now under environmental stress. The irony isn't being lost on me here where tea is king that I'm supposed to wait for these guys to pick me up in front of a coffee shop.
Our driver and guide, Rama, is the son of a tea harvester from India, which traditionally has supplied much of the labor for the plantations in the Cameron Highlands, including the largest of these, the Bow Plantation.
The landscape of this and competing plantations largely define the region. People come to see the plantation as much or more as they do to drink the tea. The tea industry is a paradox from an environmental standpoint. In order to create plantations like this one, entire mountainsides of pristine tropical jungle had to be destroyed. And yet when you see the neat clusters of tea trees, tree shrubs, blanketing the hillsides, one instantly thinks of beauty, not destruction. I guess it's not what's taken away, but what's put back that makes the difference.
Do you know why people call it very young leaves? You see? They can make it frozen. Look at the size. Look at the size. You smell it. Wait, you smell it. Same like grass. Yeah, this is grass. Huh? Nothing. Yeah.
It doesn't smell though.
Same like grass. Yeah. Huh? It's like grass. Yeah. Look at it.
This plantation and the company's three others in these highlands got their start in 1929 under British-born businessman J.A. Russell, when today's Malaysia was still very much a British colony. Russell and his three brothers were also important players in two others of the colony's extractive activities, tin mining and rubber plantations. J.A., who is said to have spoken several dialects of Chinese as well as Malay, ultimately focused on producing tea. Today, the plantations he left behind produce 70% of Malaysia's tea for export. It continues to be a family empire, with his granddaughter running the company.
The road winds its way for miles through the plantation, past bright red houses of plantation workers to the company's headquarters, which is set up like a park visitor center. There's a museum, tea shops, and a couple of restaurants on its terrace.
A tea tree can produce for a century, but it doesn't produce continuously for a century. It has to be trimmed every so often, such as every 3 years or 5 years. It lays fallow for up to 4 months, and then the leaves come back and it's off to the races again. Things are ever renewing on a tea plantation.
Higher in the hills, not far from the plantation, you enter a cloud forest typical of these highlands. This one is mossy forest, where, as I discovered, it's possible to get rained on without there being a cloud in the sky.
I'm walking around in the section of this beautiful place that's referred to as the boardwalk for obvious reasons. It's a constructed platform with many steps that takes you up into the trees without really having an immediate impact on the forest floor. Despite it being so beautifully cool here, the humidity is so high that the trees are dropping water. They're almost like living stalactites. The forest floor is so far down below, I can't even see to the bottom. It's all very steep, of course. And if I'm slightly disappointed, it's because I'd hoped to take a trek in this forest. It was only after I arrived that I learned that to do that, one needs to obtain a permit at least 2 weeks ahead of time. Now that I'm here, I do get it completely. The government is desperately trying to save what's left of this habitat and keep people from trampling it to death. So it's totally understandable to put limits on the trekking that can go on here. If you're looking for a quaint mountain village, Tenah Rata is not it. These are urban vacation enclaves with clusters of mid-rise buildings inserted into a tropical highlands landscape. Unless you want to be stuck in big city traffic jams on the area's scenic two-lane roads, you have to start early here to get anywhere in these mountains. During peak times, which is to say much of the day, it can take 2 hours or more to drive less than 5 miles, making me wonder what government planners were thinking, and they're still building here. Tenah Rata is choking on its own success, with way too many people streaming into the place.
Yet ironically, once you're here and walk around, the town is pleasant, catering to families and kids, with a very pretty town park and its own share of quirkiness, including this restaurant that serves its all-day breakfast for only 3 hours in the morning.
Long before it was a tourist resort, Tenah Rata was an isolated village that later became a military outpost established by the British during colonial times. This beautiful old church and convent overlooking the town was once a British military hospital. The idyllic climate made this the perfect place for sick and injured soldiers to rest and recuperate. Many Army retirees settled here in the years leading up to Malaysia's independence. The story about this building is that, well, it's abandoned now. The last nun left 7 years ago after suffering a fall. She had to be placed in another facility, and it's been empty ever since. There's a public school next to it, which is really the only thing happening on this hill. The last nun to leave here was Sister Lucy. 1 or 2 of the rooms on the ground floor were turned into classrooms. Sister Lucy taught in one of them. And today, if you walk up to the window of that classroom, as I just did, and look inside, you can clearly see that the classroom, its desks and paraphernalia, remain just as Sister Lucy left it. For all of the problems of getting into and getting out of Tenah Rata and these other tourist centers, the one thing you can say about it is that the town limits have been strictly enforced so that you don't have a kind of urban sprawl in the countryside. You just go from urban area, clogged streets, to forest, almost instantaneously. And I've come to one such place, and that is a trail leading to a waterfall called Robinson Falls. The sky is brooding at the moment. It's mid-afternoon, and I'm a bit concerned that I will not make it before the skies open in some pretty heavy rainfall. But I'm going to see how far I can go. Well, I've been walking 15 minutes or so, and I've yet to see another person. That gives you sort of an idea as to how quickly you can reach solitude. You may be able to hear the stream roaring down below me. You get glimpses of it, but you can barely see it through the forest here. I'm descending this trail now, and the sound of the water is growing louder. I'm seeing some other people. It's like 4 or 5 people standing down here where you can look directly at the falls. And here it is. This is a beautiful waterfall. It looks to be about maybe 100 feet tall, more or less. And there's a smaller waterfall farther down this trail. The trail is rather slippery. That's despite the fact that it is dry, at least for the moment. It is getting darker by the minute here. Now that I've reached the falls, I'm going to take a few minutes to take a breath and just enjoy the sight and the sounds of it. And then I'll head back. But what a place to be. I can't tell you off the top of my head who Robinson Falls is named for. I can tell you that Cameron Highlands is named for William Cameron, who was a British geologist and explorer, commissioned to survey this region in 1885. The Brits set up a hill station, or an agricultural experiment station, in 1925 to see if coffee, tea, fruits, and vegetables could be grown here. It was a no-go for the coffee, but a green light for everything else.
It was about 2 miles back to my guest house, and in case you're wondering, the rain held off. That is, until about 3 minutes after I got there.